Bitcoin. You've probably heard it called a lot of things, right? But one of the most powerful ideas, one that's really stuck, is this comparison to digital gold. The idea that Bitcoin is our modern internet-age answer to the ultimate safe investment. But is that amazing metaphor actually true? Well, we're going to dig in and find out.
Okay, so let's get right into this digital gold idea. You hear it everywhere. It's such a compelling story that, even academic researchers point to it as a key reason people get into crypto. But here's the thing. Just because a story is popular doesn't mean it actually holds up when you start asking the tough questions.
So why is this idea so appealing to begin with? I mean, what's the big draw? Well, it taps into this really fundamental hope that investors have, the search for something that can protect their wealth, especially when the stock market gets chaotic. It promises to be a brand new sanctuary for your money.
And at first glance, you can totally see why the comparison makes sense. Both Bitcoin and gold are scarce. There's only so much of them to go around. And, this is the big one, neither is controlled by a government or a central bank. That makes him feel really separate from the politics and policies that can mess with currencies like the dollar.
This all sounds fantastic in theory, doesn't it? But what happens when we stop telling the story and start looking at the science? How does this whole digital gold claim actually hold up when we test it against the strict financial definition of what a safe haven asset is supposed to be?
To do that, first we need to be super clear on what a safe haven really is. It's not just about being rare. According to Finance 101, a true safe haven has to be stable. It needs to hold its value, or even better, gain value, when everything else is in a nosedive. Think of it as the ultimate financial lifeboat in a storm. And when it comes to this test, gold is the undisputed champion. It's the benchmark. We're talking about a track record that spans thousands of years. It's a physical thing you can hold, and it has consistently been the go-to refuge during wars, recessions, you name it.
Okay, so now let's look at the hard data. If Bitcoin is really digital gold, it should act like gold, and that means, above all, it should be stable. So, is it?
And whoa, right out of the gate we hit a massive roadblock. Research shows that Bitcoin's price swings are, on average, 10 times more wild than gold's. An asset that can drop a huge chunk of its value in a single day, well, that's pretty much the polar opposite of the stability you're looking for in a safe haven.
And we don't have to just guess about this. We had the perfect, real-world stress test for every single asset out there. The market crash when the COVID-19 pandemic hit in early 2020. I mean, this was it. This was the moment for any true safe haven to prove its worth.
So what happened? Bitcoin didn't prove its worth. In fact, studies show it did the exact opposite of what a safe haven should do. When the stock market tanked, Bitcoin tanked right along with it. It acted way more like a risky tech stock than a stable store of value, the very thing you are hoping to get away from.
And the financial problems don't stop there. Studies find Bitcoin's price is mostly driven by hype, speculation, and what people are saying on social media, not some deep fundamental value. And on top of that, think about it. With only about 15 years of history, it's a baby compared to gold. There's no standard, agreed-upon way to even figure out what one Bitcoin is supposed to be worth.
So yeah, the financial case for Bitcoin being digital gold is looking pretty weak. But hold on, because that's only half the story. The comparison actually breaks down in a completely different and maybe even more surprising way that has nothing to do with price charts. All right, let's totally switch gears. Forget the market for a second. Let's talk about what it actually takes to create this stuff. What's the real-world cost of digging new gold out of the ground versus creating new Bitcoin on a computer? The answer opens up a whole new kind of comparison. Check this out. A 2022 study looked at the climate damage an asset causes as a percentage of its market value. For gold, that number is about 4%. For Bitcoin, it's a staggering 35%. That's much closer to the impact of raising cattle for beef, which has led some researchers to come up with a totally different metaphor. Maybe Bitcoin isn't digital gold, it's digital beef. So you're probably asking, wait, how can something that's purely digital have a climate impact like that? I mean, where does this massive environmental footprint even come from? It all boils down to this system that secures the network, called proof of work. You can basically picture a giant worldwide competition, where super powerful computers are all racing 24/7 to solve a math puzzle. And this race, by its very design, requires an absolutely enormous amount of electricity to run. And that electricity has to come from somewhere, right? Well, according to data from Cambridge University, despite what you might hear about green mining, the reality is that nearly 2/3 of all the energy powering the Bitcoin network comes from burning fossil fuels.
So when you put it all together, when you look at both the financial evidence and the environmental evidence, that digital gold metaphor starts to look less like a helpful comparison and more like, a really catchy marketing slogan. The data just doesn't back it up.
This chart just lays it all out, plain and simple. History, millennia versus about 15 years. Volatility, one is low, the other is extremely high. How do they act in a crisis? One's a safe haven, the other acts like a tech stock. And the climate impact? They're in completely different leagues.
So in the end, the evidence is pretty clear. Look, Bitcoin is a fascinating technology. It's a brand new, highly speculative digital asset with its own unique risks and rewards. But is it a digital replacement for gold? It just isn't. And that really leaves us with the most important question. If we strip away the digital gold metaphor, what are we left with? What is Bitcoin's actual purpose and its real long-term value in the world's economy? Now that's the mystery that everyone is still trying to solve.